Well, all right. Good morning and welcome to May 31st version of the podcast Prairie Pundits. I am one of your hosts, James Preston, joined with the wonderful Mike Fell and Mr. Brett Swanson, also wonderful. I couldn't give you an adjective on the fly, but here we are. It's the fifth Sunday of May. We weren't planning on getting together, but with the fifth Monday, because we usually will make these on the first and third Sundays is our cadence. But this is one of the lucky months where we get five. And then there's another event coming up here on Tuesday, June 2nd, that we may talk a little bit about today. And so if anyone read my agenda, which I didn't send out, it was called today's Prairie Pundits is the predictions, projections, and predilections of the next campaign performance. And we'll be getting together next week too. So whatever we say today is going to be somewhat of a looking glass into the future, and we can determine how right or how wrong we are coming next time. So I hope that rundown gave a nice layout for today.
Well,
Mike, you got to jump in.
I'll jump in right away. I will not be making predictions. There's an element of doing that with regards to my professional duties that I would not want to connect with. However, I will provide in-depth analysis and a preview. If you gentlemen want to make predictions, go ahead. But I can share what I see as the lay of the land, the key things to watch for Tuesday night when the returns come out, and what's really going on right now in front of us in real time, or what has just really played out in real time in the last couple of days, few weeks.
All right. So the ground rules are set. Mike will not be making predictions, but he can still afford predilections, maybe projections.
I can't do projections either because I don't have any returns to project with. But I can provide a lot. All
right.
I mean, I've come up, I have both interesting races and then the governor's race to get into, and maybe that's a good place to start because I think that's the biggest race on the card this week.
Fair enough. Well,
I think that is a good place to start. So, Mike, what are you hearing?
So what I am hearing is there is a good chance that there will be a runoff election 8 weeks after, sometime in late July between the top two finishers for South Dakota governor, because you have to get 35% or over 35% to just win the race. The polling, statewide polling that's been put out there shows Toby Doden, the Aberdeen businessman, the quote-unquote self-described Trump outsider, being in the lead, but not by a large margin. Then it gets really tight, and it just depends on who you talk to between Congressman Dusty Johnson as well as Governor Larry Roden and Speaker of the House John Hanson. And only one of those three, if you believe that Doden is likely going to be in the top two, and the polling would point towards that at this point, only one of those three is going to, in essence, advance. This would be an analysis that would be akin to the Final Four in basketball or March Madness, where you've got basically four teams, and we'll find out who will advance to the championship, if you want to call it that, the runoff election in late July. That's what it looks like right now.
So, do you see that poll as legitimate? Who did it?
It was a poll done by Easton College, I believe, and it's Kelloland. It's Kello that releases the poll. So it's often known as the Kelloland poll or the Kello poll, and then it's done by a college. Now, I talked to people with some of the campaigns, and they strongly dispute the polling's accuracy or information. And it's hard with polling because if we're looking at a voter turnout, we should talk more about this voter turnout issue later in this podcast. But if we're talking about a voter turnout that's well below 50%, when people get a phone call for a poll, they're asked, are you a registered voter? Do you intend to vote? Well, a lot of people say, yeah, I'm probably going to vote, and then they don't vote. Or a lot of people say, yeah, I'm a registered voter, but maybe they don't show up or they don't vote. So what that means is it's very hard to judge the conviction level or the passion level of the respondent to the poll. And then you've got another factor, and that's MAGA Republicans. MAGA Republicans are famous or notorious for not answering the phone when a pollster calls. So if Doden's in the lead, this is really interesting thing. If Toby Doden's in the lead, and the MAGA people love Toby, and Toby's been by far the one ahead of the MAGA train in this governor's race, then the question really is Toby doing a lot better than 28, 26%? Because if his best supporters aren't going to answer the phone because MAGA people don't trust pollsters or don't want to answer the poll phones, then he could be closer to breaking ahead of 35% and scoring the victory in a campaign where I'm told he has put $4 million of his own money to this point into this campaign.
He seems like such an unlikely candidate, except for the money.
Well, the unlikeliness is part of the appeal, though. I think that that's part of the appeal in the campaign. I'll just say, from terms of campaign fundamentals, going all the way back to last year, this has been far and away the best run of the four candidates' campaigns. This has been textbook how to run a successful campaign.
He has no record, so he can attack the other guys and stand on, I'm a businessman.
But he didn't do that,
reportedly
though.
a slumlord.
But he didn't do that.
He can almost do and say anything.
He
and
could
he can
do
buy
that.
the best talent that is available to do the campaign.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
wouldn't
the
trust
right
the guy.
talent.
Read what he said about. He had a long interview in the Searchlight, and he has zero idea on how to tackle anything with any kind of credibility or any kind of knowledge of state government. I mean, yeah, you could say that he worships Trump and he follows that same kind of game plan. He can say anything he wants, and people can buy it, but he has zero experience in government. And if you read that interview, I wish I had it right here in front of me. I could find it. He doesn't really have a clue. Where all the other guys, I'm not a fan of any of them, have records at least to go on. And I agree with you on the attacks. The attacks have gotten so tiring and they're so distorted, and I almost feel like, really, it should be outlawed. And we should evaluate people really on their records. But anyway, I'll stop. James, were you going to say something?
Well, I was loving what you were saying, Brett. But I did want to verify what Mike was saying, so I pulled up the South Dakota State campaign finance disclosure pre-primary, pre-primary. The last statement, he says an outstanding balance of each loan. So it looks like he did lend over $4 million outstanding balance of each loan received. So it does appear that is true, which is hard to believe in this state for people to be able to throw around money when we can't afford to drive to Aberdeen for most of us, much less have that kind of money. So it's, if it's legal, the state campaign finance is a little bit different, right? You think you can loan yourself whatever you want, but it's not surprising, because what I think Mike was saying that made sense to me is what he was he's talking about the polish on the pig, the lipstick on the pig, which is an excellent campaign team around him, and he's built it up. It's all over the place. as far as you see his face every morning. You know, you can't turn on the local news without running across him. And if that's what it takes these days, that's what it takes. But still, what Brett was saying is still like kind of the meat and potatoes of the argument. You know, there's where are the policy ideas actually? And I'll have to read that Searchlight.
There is one. There's a very big one, and that is the same promise that Governor DeSantis has in Florida of eliminating property taxes. Period. Just wiping them out. And Toby Doden has gained serious traction in this race, saying that you know, if you own your home, why do you pay rent to the government in the form of a property tax? And that is resonating with a certain number of voters. I talked to someone that lives in the in the Black Hills, and you know, and they just said this election might decide if I get priced out of my home or not. And you know, there's a real resonate. You know, this message is resonating with those that are impacted more directly by high property taxes and property valuations. And so there is more than him just saying I'm a MAGA outsider. There's Toby Doden saying, I'm going to not just fix your problem, I'm basically going to take the nuclear solution to your problem. Now, that could cause a lot of other problems.
Yeah, and he's going to end the Ukrainian war with Russia tomorrow. You can say whatever you want. He has no plan. If you eliminate property taxes, fine and good. Where are you going to get that revenue then? If you've completely eliminated that, he has zero plan.
That's an excellent question, and I have a lot of friends that live in the rural parts of this West River area, and they said that that'd be the worst thing you could do, because they can't make it up in sales tax. Nobody's going to Bison for the weekend. Nobody's going to, you know, to Wall for the weekend. They might stop at the drugstore there, but you know, the reality is that property tax is the whole central nervous system, the whole backbone for rural South Dakota. So is that going to go over very well? But here's the thing. It's like this. I used to get tickets to St. Louis Cardinal baseball games like 3 hours before the game that night. And it was the best thing. I could just pick up the phone and I would call all these people I worked with and say, do you want to go to the game? And almost all the time they'd say, no, I can't, because I already have a commitment. But they appreciated that they got invited to the game. And this is kind of like what this promise is. The legislature's got to go along with it. If Doden gets elected, because of the promise, hey, the promise was there. It's not his fault he couldn't keep it if the legislature says you can't do it. So there you go. This is a competition to become governor of South Dakota, a competition he's put a couple of $1 million of his own dollars into. And if that promise resonates enough and his campaign is run well enough, then he's going to win.
That sounded like
James,
a prediction.
you have to say something.
I'm listening, and okay, let's say property taxes. Bad plans end up with even worse fixes. Let's say that in policy. If you have the DeSantis elimination of property tax over time, I mean, there has to be a financial math to back it up. And the math is what everyone who's very highly conservative, who I've spoken with on this topic, tends to, even if you're progressive or whatever you call yourself, it doesn't matter, because the math is the math. And yet to be determined, I don't think DeSantis' proposal has gone anywhere. I don't know if it's a boilerplate template you can take from Florida, population of almost 40 million people. And then assume that our population of barely 900,000 is going to be able to mathematically have anything similar to that. Because if you try to do something drastic, the pendulum will swing back, and that's what's the fearful reality of a lot of people. And we see that today across the board. I mean, when they lash themselves on to a really bad policymaker like the Trump administration is, and you see how many illegal moves they've made and how many Department of Justice exploitation tactics that they've used. Not just this whole, weaponization fund, but a lot of the other subpoena action that they've been really using the Department of Justice to weaponize. Like, for example, Don Lemon and Don Lemon supporters were subpoenaed. All 1.3 million followers of his on YouTube were looked at, and the judge just smacked that down. So the tariffs, uh, anytime you hear the word tariff, it's cringy. And the $1.66 billion now that have to come back to the consumers that were illegally procured in these, protectionist policies that were enacted. And now what's going to happen? And then what did this government do next? They went and started another war in the Middle East and shut down the Strait of Hormuz. So if anything, if anyone has learned anything from the federal level, the state ought not be acting like the federal level at this point. And so I think that that's going to be, once this primary is done, once this, say it's a runoff, is done, these people are going to be in a position of they literally painted themselves into a corner, because how can you defend the continued abuse of our Constitution to the people of South Dakota and say that's a good thing? We're not an autocratic type of people. You can't tell a South Dakotan what to do. I mean, good luck. You know what I'm saying? I mean, sure, there are people out there that want to be told what to do, but not the majority of us. And so I think that will come more clear into picture after these primaries. And nobody really knows who this Doden is. I mean, truthfully, here in the Black Hills, I mean, you see him, but you don't know him. And this will be the next few months we'll get a chance to, and we'll see more about that.
Well, I think a big key is this. We know what South Dakotans like. We know what they don't like, because we are South Dakotans, and we live among South Dakotans. Here's my big question, and this is going to be answered in my mind on Tuesday. How much are South Dakotans paying attention, and how much are they engaged? Because if they're engaged, a lot of the things that they have heard about candidates in the way of these attack commercials are going to just be like water off a duck's back, and they're not going to stick. But if they are uninformed and they show up and vote, then, oh no. I just want informed voters. Everyone can make their own choice. But being informed and not being manipulated by misinformation, that's really where the rubber meets the road. And we'll know a lot more in the next 48 to 72 hours of when this is being taped.
Yeah, we'll see. I tell you what, I think Doden's about ready to blow up. I've never seen a guy wear a suit so poorly. He must wear it 2 sizes too small, and I do believe his head will explode anytime soon. And I don't even dislike the guy or like the guy. He is physically unappealing, on top of these hateful ads that he airs. Okay, I have a question about Senate 30. You know these people intimately. You've worked with them a lot. What do you hear on the ground?
Senate 30. On the ground, hear that most people like Amber a lot. They like who she is. They like her personally. However, what I am hearing is there's a lot of concern about the data center position, the pro data center position that Amber has put out there. And Julie, who has a lot of supporters as well in District 30 and has served the district, for 8 years, she's really come after the data center issue in the advertising at the end. And I don't know, if Amber's going to be able to handle this data center push. This is the hot button issue that's that's really sinking battleships right now is this data center issue on the GOP Republican primary side.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
it's a
interesting.
data
I went to a
centers
forum. I
is
was
big.
invited, so were both of those women. And Amber showed up and Julie did not. And Julie represents, I think for a lot of people, she's one of us. I'm saying in general of District 30. And Amber is what we want to be. She is well spoken and looks good and is young, and she's quite a contrast to Julie. But I've heard nothing about. I didn't hear the data center wasn't even mentioned. The forum was mostly about education, so I don't know
Well,
anything
it's been
about the.
it's kind of been a late development the last, week or so.
Okay,
And yeah, there a lot of thoughts of water, natural resources, and everything going towards data centers, and a lot of people in District 30 are anti-data center, and Amber has voted pro data center in the Senate, where it's taken the position that data centers are a good thing. I don't know if they are a good thing or not, but I'm just relaying the analysis that you asked me to provide on the
in
District
District 30,
30
my
Senate
district,
race.
water is the issue, is the primary issue. At least this go round at this stage.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of. There's been forums and legal action taken to protect the water, and tying the water to the data centers um, is an obvious connection because they use quite a bit of water. Uh, so I'm kind of surprised that Amber made herself vulnerable, because that's one thing. She is deft at moving, deft at talking, and for her to step into this, it kind of surprises me.
Well, I've talked to Amber about the data center thing before, and she makes some very good points. I'm not saying, I don't know I don't have my own position on it, but it seems as though that particular issue is a hot button issue. And I think that it'd be one thing if Julie was unfamiliar to the voters in District 30, but she was elected 4 times by the people of District 30. So I think it's going to be a very close race, a very interesting race.
Mm-hmm. I have something to say about the data center since I attended the Black Hills Forum and Press Club's data center forum panel on Friday. And you're right, Mike. That's one of, I'd say, the lightning rod issue locally, his data centers, and then the use of TIFs. And affordability, of course, is the if you're not using the word affordability and whenever you speak to people, you're missing everything. But data centers here, it was a panel, Black Hills Forum and Press Club. Um, it's Elevate Rapid City helped sponsor it alongside a law firm in town, and so it was one of those events where we couldn't film, right? We couldn't do any of that, of course, but the panel was made up of, Rick Bell, who is Dakota Rural Action. Uh, PE he's an environmental engineer as well as a electrical engineer, and he was kind of the voice of anti-data center. And then the other 2 panelists were Black Hills Energy and West River Electric Co-op individuals. So what I took away from that is that it was kind of I hate to say, not really informative event, because the questions that people are asking around here are in that group, are not the same questions that people like my neighbors are talking about. What the people in that environment were talking about, centered around a lot of the water and a lot of the other, increase in utility costs work. But when you talk to other people outside of it, is this a sort of a bum rush towards a mass surveillance society? More of the deeper policy issues of why data centers are looked upon so unfavorably right now. And, one gentleman asked if, they'll eventually put data centers in space, put the moon on them and send data back and forth from the moon to Earth. And I thought that was kind of neat, but nonetheless, if in your District 30 and you do have a pro data center stance, and you're aware of the water issues in District 30, which Brett and I are very aware of. Yeah, that's going to be your smudge mark for sure. And it's really sad because even the policymakers who are talking about the data centers don't even have the full, at least in my opinion. I didn't think none of us are on this on this forum, or that I'm aware of, are data center engineers, and what involves with, like,
I'm
the
not
water.
an engineer of anything.
Social engineer here. No, but like the water, like it goes in there, closed loop, great. But you don't just put just water. You put water with chemicals. Like, what else is in it? How often do you change that, etc.? The real kind of rubber hits the road questions, if you will, Mike. But the data center thing, it's any politician right now that's running. That's a blemish on them, I feel, because people around here just want to pump the brakes. And what's going to happen when these things in 10 years are obsolete? You just lost all this water and you have a big old box that's sitting out there in the industrial park. I mean, is that a possibility? And the data center, the Sequitur Edge one that has scalability up to 10 megawatts over there on 79, I think that might even be in Brett's district. I'm not sure if it's in 35 or 30, but it's off of Highway 79. So there you go. Go Julie Freimüller. I'll throw in my endorsement.
This feels like that's a really good analysis there, James. And this feels like one of those rare issues where there's a really wide divide or chasm between the conference room and the coffee shop. I mean, the way in which this issue is perceived in different circles is very different. But this is the hot button issue this year. We didn't talk about data centers in 2024. The TIFs was really kind of played out with the Liberty Land thing a few months ago. So this is the hot issue, the trendy issue, and you have a huge divide there between Julie Freimüller, who is anti-data center, and Amber Holst, who was pro-data center in the District 30 Senate race.
Should we move on to another district? I want to hear about 34.
34.
34. Okay. What you got, Mike?
All right. Well, do we want to start with the Senate or the House? Because we got two things going.
Let's start in the upper chamber and work our way down, shall we?
Okay, so we have Taffy Howard and Jason Green in a rematch of a race won by Taffy Howard by 38 votes 2 years ago. Jason has been able to raise or receive quite a bit of money. Taffy's message in the last couple of days has been, I'm fighting for the people in the bleachers. The people in the box seats can take care of themselves. And I think that message has been resonating. Meanwhile, Jason, who is an attorney and has been at Monument, I'm sure you know him well, James. He is running for a second time, trying to get over the top this time. And, I really have no idea in this rematch of what was a close race last time, if this race could even be closer this time, or if it'll be won by the same person or the challenger candidate in the case of Jason Green. I think this is really an up in the air battle.
Okay. I will add to that, and we'll context the data center wedge issue with the current race in the Senate. Now, Taffy was, again, going back to the resolved TIF debacle of the Liberty Land. And that is going to, we'll see how people's memories are with that, because Taffy was one of the most outspoken voices against the TIF. And I know that the pro-TIF group of, many business leaders in the community, including Jason's name, were all posted on their website of the pro yes, right, that group. And so this is my prediction, is that the battle that had occurred over the last few months and drawn out into a special election will inevitably come back and be somewhat of a force in this local race. But also in the Common Council, I think that the a lot of the candidates are almost juxtaposed like that. I don't know of any ward that has a two anti-TIF candidates or two pro-TIF candidates. I'm not sure because I pay attention to really this part of the world, 34, but I think it's going to come back. I think that TIF, just like the data center, is going to be something.
I think it is an issue, and let's remember the TIF failed. So Taffy was on the right side of the vote, or right side of history, however you look at it. So we'll see how that plays out.
Mm-hmm.
He was not at the forum. He was at the forum that I attended. It was kind of a worthless forum, to be honest. There were 21 of us on stage. We all got 2 minutes to introduce ourselves. By then, it's almost over. It was kind of ridiculous. Taffy Howard for the common man, that's laughable. And it's an easy thing to say. And Jason Green, I mean, he's not wildly different. I mean, if you go with Green or you go with Howard, the district doesn't change at all. I mean, as far as what happens in Pierre, I mean, it is, I don't know, I forget right now I know exactly who we have running against them. So, I mean, still heavily favored that the primary winner will go to Pierre, but you're not going to see any change at all. These are status quo candidates in either case.
Can we switch real quick to 32 primary?
Okay.
Senate.
So
actually, we didn't talk.
Duhamel and Karen McNeil, aka
Correct.
the Mama Bear.
The Mama Bear, yeah.
Mama Bear.
I do want to go back to 34 House, but we're on the Senate, and I'm piquing the interest of this one because Helene Duhamel representing and clearly has gone through some radiation treatments for her diagnoses that she's been very public about. And it was great to see her face again. She's her hair shorter, of course, and she's still smiling, and she's just a very pleasant, wonderful human being. And I did get a chance to meet Karen McNeil because the forum that I was attended was the Black Hills Home Builders Association Elevate forum, and so that was when I got to meet Karen McNeil for the first time. And I will say I was very impressed with her. She spells herself out as a scientist, and she has both her bachelor's and master's degrees from the School of Mines here, and has been really involved in teaching in our public schools for, I think, 30 some years. And interesting enough about her too, it's her son is Justin McNeil, who's primarying rounds down, and he's lives locally here. His federal election information I was snooping on a week or so ago showed he had spent $11 on the race. So, combat veteran, and I really wish him well in his primary against Rounds. But Karen, but just back to her really fast, I think I was very impressed with how she was just very open to speaking to me, and I think she would do very well in that position. Now, it's not an anti-endorsement against Helene, but certainly that is the now kind of a shifted to the middle, if not to the left there, with the way that they redrew District 32 and the last gerrymandering, let's call it. So it'll be very interesting. Do you have anything else to add to that, Mike, and from your perspective?
I'll tell you, I know Helene, I know Karen, and I know each of them has a lot of what I call talent to bring to the position, and this is what I would call a very talented race. These are two highly intelligent people. We talk about Karen McNeil being a scientist from School of Mines. I mean, you got to respect Helene being a graduate of Stanford University. So, I mean, these are two highly intelligent candidates for state senate. And and it's a much more what people would call contested district in District 32, because the Republican winner could very well lose to the Democrat in that district, and that's what makes District 32 unique in my analysis.
Yeah, interesting. I did not know that she went to Stanford, but very, very sweet lady, and I will be watching. Interestingly, Brett, you got anything to say about that one?
Well, District 32 is by far the most interesting because of the demographics. Roughly a third, a third, a third. That's very rough. And a Democrat did win in the House and could win in the Senate. Helene is a force, and she's been around for so long, and the family name and the family connections. Oh, it seems even with her illness, her illness could work in her favor, for heaven's sakes. She has such roots that I just can't see her being defeated, to be honest. Because, basically, she used to be a Democrat. And she just she's a Republican of convenience, and she plays the game well. I just can't see Helene losing, honestly.
We'll see on Tuesday. Because then if whoever they go up against, again, there's the data center issue. I think the Democrat, really nice guy as well.
Jeff Shelton.
Jeff Shelton. Yeah.
Jeff Shelton. Just on if you were to see the two talk, he would beat McNeil because of just the presence, and he knows the issues, and because it's 32. Any other district, he probably wouldn't have a chance. But in 32, I don't know. Jeff's worked hard, and he knows the issues, and he's an appealing guy. So I don't know. We'll see.
Can we switch to speaking of Senate? And I know I wanted to get to House 34. Let's do this really fast. Mike, I want to hear House 34 really fast. And then I want to ask you both this other big question that's been broiling across South Dakota, involving the Senate federal race. But really quick, Mike, House 34, what's your analysis?
Yeah, we got Mike Derby, Heather Baxter, and Becky Drury in a 3-person rematch from 2024. You may recall the results. 2 years ago, it was Mike Derby first, Heather not very far behind in second place, and Becky a little off the pace in third. This time around, all 3 candidates have run a very hard, strong campaign. And Heather is in the mix to become Secretary of State. Mike Derby, if his reelection very well could make a big impact on Rapid City's seat at the table as far as being the chair of the Appropriations Committee in the South Dakota House. And, I think it's been a very competitive race between those 3 candidates, all of whom I've had a chance to get to know in the last few years.
So for those who may not be aware, including myself, you can run for the Secretary of State and run for a House seat at the same time.
That's my understanding. I think the Secretary of State is handled at the convention level. Does that seem? I think it's a convention vote. It's not a election vote. Elected position. People don't show up and vote for Secretary of State. You won't find a Secretary of State yard sign in your neighbor's yard.
And so convention,
you could find an SOS sign in their yard, but it wouldn't spell out Secretary of State.
You find a no data center sign in my yard. So the convention then must be obviously after the race. So essentially, if Baxter beats Drury, or say, let's say for the Appropriations Committee chair gets wiped out and the women win, it's Becky and not saying this is a hypothetical, Mike.
I was going to say, Mike Derby is to me the strongest local campaign mind that I've come across.
Yeah, I mean,
I tell
he
you, I mean, Mike wins.
ownership
Mike
of
is tremendous,
billboards.
tremendous. Well, not just that, but Mike's on every street corner waving, and people are honking, and
Mm-hmm.
Mike works hard. He is
Mm-hmm.
a hard-working campaigner. And then I've had it, people, I don't want to get any deeper into the analysis, but your hypothetical caught me off guard because Mike Derby is undefeated from what I know.
Yeah, and that was the point of the hypothetical too, because he was my first boss, by the way, 16 years old dishwasher at Candy Lake Chop House. But
Okay.
his wife Carmen actually was more of my boss than him. But
I
nonetheless,
like Carmen a lot. I know Carmen
yeah,
too.
tell her I said hi. So nonetheless, if Heather Baxter wins the House and Becky wins the House, but then Baxter's then nominated to be Secretary of State, does that make that Derby would automatically backfill that position, or does the governor have to appoint?
I don't know the answer to that.
All right, too
I would
too
think it would.
technical.
I think it would be a governor appointment. I think we
Mm-hmm.
saw, a couple years ago that when somebody, when a position came open, then Governor Nome made appointments. I think that's how it works.
Gotcha. Okay, can we move on to something else? Then this is the other burning question.
Yeah.
And Brian Banks. Brian Banks has raised more money than the Democrat Julian Bedouin. What do you guys think of the calls that I've seen kind of echoing and getting louder for the Democratic candidate to drop out and to make it a two-way race, Rounds versus Banks? Brad and I have talked about this before.
I'll let you guys
I
talk
don't
about
know.
it. I have not heard a thing about this in my circles. Most of
Okay.
I'm Republican, and I am not in some of
Not
the
these
same
circles.
circles that gentlemen are privy to.
Hey,
Well,
no one wants Rounds to lose more than I do. I think he's basically just been coasting for the last couple of years. His newsletter that comes out once a week is from Mars. It has almost nothing to do with the real world. So to lose him would be great. The other two candidates, neither is a long-time South Dakotan. Their resumes are interesting. Bangs has done just about everything as far as legal, from teaching to being in the JAG Corps and all that stuff. The way he has handled himself during this election, I don't want him to win. I think he has done kind of some underhanded things, and this last bit to push Julian out based on money, please give me a break. If he showed polling, and if he talked to the Democratic Party, and he talked to Julian, and if Julian made the final call and he was persuaded by all this, then I would go. But I'd rather lose with Julian than win with Brian.
well, that's some conviction. I unaware of what the underhand things may have been. It's
Bringing this up in the first place, saying, you think this didn't come from Brian? This, I've got more money than he does.
Mm.
And him saying that Julian and I have talked, he hasn't talked to Julian. I think that's an out-and-out lie.
Would the Democrats ever host a debate between the two? Would allow the people to meet both candidates? I mean, we know who Rounds is, right? He's making a weekly newsletter. He's been kind of a fixture in South Dakota since the early 2000s. But these other candidates, wouldn't the Democratic Party be behooved to, open their doors more to independents, to actually give them platforms to debate?
I don't see it. Why?
The why would be the clear picture of who are these people, right? What is their policies?
He has done nothing to benefit the Democratic Party. Now, on the flip side, the Democratic Party did not treat Brian very well. And the Democratic Party, in South Dakota, we can talk about different factions. Should they have done more for him when he ran against them? Yeah, they should have. They kind of pushed him off the cliff, as they kind of do semi-regularly. They recruit hard, and then there's not enough money to go around, so they choose someone like Jamie Smith's going to get the money that cycle, and we're going to really try hard with Jamie. Or that's how it works, is there isn't enough money. And well, there are other factors that play into it. So here they recruit Brian, they bring him on. He does a good job, but he doesn't have the resources that a Thune does. Come on. So that goes the way it goes. So Brian has, resentments. He has a grudge against the Democratic Party, all legitimate. He runs this race, and then he just kind of expects us to step in line. Like, look I've done it. You should have backed me before. Now you should back me. And I think we might have, had he been more of a politician, if he'd been more diplomatic with the party. And he wasn't. He really, again, the party has a habit in the state, in the time that I've been intimately involved, in kind of dismissing certain candidates. They work hard for you a little bit. Part of it is just they're stretched thin, and it's very understandable. And part of it is there's biases, obviously. So I don't know. I take it, I tried to contact Brian. I tried to say, listen, come talk to us. The West River people, come talk to the West River people. See, take our temperature. Come to one of our meetings. Both you can come to the 3 districts or the 3 counties that I'm involved in. And he didn't do it. And I'm not saying he's supposed to do everything that I say for him to do. I'm just saying he didn't come back and talk to me at all. And I just say, forget it. If you can't make this, and we're not best buddies, okay, but we know each other. And in one of my campaign events, I let him speak. He wasn't even running for anything. I'm just saying that he hasn't done enough for us, with us, to warrant any kind of special treatment. I'll stop there. Sorry.
No, I appreciate it, because the call for anyone to resign from or step down from a race, especially as committed as you are when you get to the federal level, is I think kind of an insult, is how I interpret that. However, if there's analyses out there that does not come from Brian Bangs that says, hey, this could be a contested race, what would you think? I don't think the call should be for anyone to step down, especially after how much money he's raised. 6 figures. Julian's, he may not have raised as much as Brian, but but how many of those are individual contributors? How much of those are just big fat checks, right? But I just would like to see the Democratic Party be more democratic and say, okay, we have open primaries for independents to vote in our primaries. So let's be a little more welcoming towards independents and have the ideas be, debated so that people can formulate their own ideas or even benefit from one another. And that's part of that call for the discourse in America to come back to the table. Well, let's start with the Democratic Party in South Dakota and be a little bit more humble to, this whole thought of, and this is for Republicans too, party supremacy. Because, if what you label yourself on a piece of paper is not who you are in the real world. And we have to stop Americans have to stop pointing fingers at people because they choose to register as whatever. It doesn't matter, because it's the old cliche, but it's not a cliche. This is the truth. It's not about left or right. It's about up or down. And if they have better policy plans, I would like to hear Julian discuss them, because thus far, I haven't been able to really pull much. Brian has talked about other certain plans here and there. And that's where it always comes down to me, is I want to know what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And I think the voters I think that's a very much speaking for many, many opinions on that. But regardless, I see and they're not in left circles, Mike, that these kind of chatters have been coming up. The South Dakota Standard is one, written by a very independent-minded individual, and but they provide very, very moderate centrist, opinions, and a lot of folks are thinking, we want to change. We don't want these lackeys who are just, promoting, what America's devolved into today is embarrassing on a lot of people's opinions right now. And we're pricing out the middle class. I mean, affordability has never been more difficult, never been harder to make a buck and to
Oh,
sustain your
that's
family.
to me, that should be the central messaging. And I think I've shared this with you before, Brett. To me, it starts with like working moms. It starts with working young people to just come to the forefront in policy discussion is to say, are things working out for you? Is this the American dream that you wanted? Is this the way of life that you expected? And one of the things as we celebrate America's 250th birthday in the next couple weeks is, the fact that at the very core of our republic, and prior to that, really, if you study European history, it's what maybe separates Europe from the rest of the world going back several centuries is that undeniable belief that there is an inevitability of progress. Well, when people get left behind, especially in a free society, um, that does represent political opportunity to those who come along and point that out and say, well, let's do something about it. Let's not accept this. And I've been saying it for a while. I don't know why the Democratic Party isn't talking aggressively to the working families that feel like they're being left behind or can't count on a future. We have grown a lot in South Dakota, but there have been some people who have left this area because they just couldn't afford to live here, or they got an opportunity. And this gets to the issue of economic competitiveness, but they got an opportunity to move to another state to where they could make ends meet for their family. This is I haven't even dipped in my toe into the cost of daycare. I mean, I'm surprised the Democratic Party isn't talking aggressively on the radios, on radio or television or digital media, a lot more to those folks that can't keep up.
Hmm. That's my agnostic amen, Mike, because I mean, we have a child in daycare. We have had, the daycare costs when we were living in Virginia, for example. Oh my gosh. I mean, but by price or purchasing power here locally, there goes your good times. There goes your night outs, and there goes all the other economic spending. If they yes, the policies that, you know, for universal, the child care credit, at the federal level that was denied. I guess, bombs are more important. I'm not sure how that ever got kicked down, but I thought there was a promise from the president that, child care would be taken care of, or helped out a bit. So that's obviously a point that, both parties move towards a solution of some child care credits for actually the providers as well. This isn't something I'm super versed in because I'm too busy running back and forth to daycare and trying to survive to follow through with it. And, but TBD, I'll come back to some of that because it is absolutely one of the biggest roadblocks to having families. And it's, yeah. And just, here's another point on that: policies that make sense. Back when Bernie won West River, hands down, 2016, Bernie Sanders was the winner of West River. Hillary won East River in the primaries. Very interesting layout there. Now, if you haven't read Donna Brazil's book called Hacks, then I think that honestly, that literature, that book needs to go into the political science curriculum of any college or any high school for that matter. so people could come back and understand the nightmare we're living in started with anti-democratic processes in both parties, including foreign actors in 2016. Now, Donna Brazile, she was the interim the DNC chair during the primary between Bernie and Hillary, and just an overview. I could give you a quick little spiel of what happened anti-democratically. Was that the Obama presidency left such a large debt in the DNC's finances that they were struggling, and to even make their fixed expenses meet monthly. They had huge consulting fees. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was at that time asleep at the wheel as the DNC chair, she had herself an army of fleet of black suburban limousines that was, driving her around just as an optics of how bad it was. And they were, I think, over $10 million in debt. Now, I think the DNC is still in a significant amount of debt. But in order to reconcile their finances, the Hillary Victory Fund or Hillary for America PACs, they came in and bailed out essentially the DNC. But in doing such, they effectively moved the DNC headquarters from Washington, D.C. to Brooklyn, New York. And that move is essentially what occurred because they were pulling all the strings with the finances. So when we had Bernie Sanders, he was like the first presidential candidate in many years since, well, maybe Obama had done this, but he had traveled to the Pine Ridge Reservation, and he was coming into to communities, lower represented communities all across Western South Dakota. And he was toe to toe Trump or Bernie. I think it's pretty clear what direction America would have gone in 2016, but we weren't afforded that opportunity because when it came to expensing, as according to Donna Brazile, to send people on the ground to get out into the places across America, it takes money. But who controlled the finances, et cetera? And today we're left with this mess that we have to clean up. Our children have to clean up. I don't know how much the national debt has ballooned since in recent history, but yeah, that was my little spiel on the DNC. But Donna Brazile's book, Hacks, it's a fantastic book. In fact, you can, she reads it out loud on Audible. You can even hear it. But anyways, so that was my spiel on that. I apologize. I went over
always good to hear about a new book or hear about a good movie. I've never complained when someone tells me, watch this movie or read this book. And sometimes I've watched a movie and didn't find it near as good as the person who recommended it. But hey, at least I appreciated the gesture.
You'll find this one so fascinating because Cozy Bear, Fuzzy Bear, those were the Russian actors who infiltrated both RNC and DNC. Mind you, those emails were equally hacked, but it was John Podesta's emails that were released, right? And I wonder why.
Interesting stuff. Yeah, I tell you, my 2016 memory on that race, I mean, at least I could answer the trivia question, who was Hillary Clinton's running mate? And it was Tim Kaine. So I feel like I could at least get a point if we had a Trivial Pursuit game going.
Yeah. Oh, too funny. Well, any final thoughts before these primaries? What are you guys feeling?
My feeling is this: if you're watching this and you have paid attention, please vote. If you are watching this and you have somewhat been lapsed and have not paid attention, don't vote. We want an informed group of voters. We want an informed group of voters coming out on Tuesday, and it's okay if you haven't paid attention. Please don't be afraid to sit it out. That's my message.
Okay.
I doubt if our listeners are part of that.
Okay. Well, maybe they're getting a good laugh out of this. If they're getting a good laugh, good.
Well, I mean, here we are in South Dakota where you don't get anything but broke and older, according to James McMurtry. Do I need to repeat that?
No.
It's now South Dakota where barbed wire doesn't stop the wind, and you don't get nothing but broke and older.
You had to.
I had to. Yes, I can't help myself. I'm wearing my South Dakota hat, sponsored by Branded Bills here. Another one of our sponsors.
I'll wear a South Dakota thing next
And I'm just wearing my Padres jersey today. My Raiders of the Lost Ark late 80s retro Gary Templeton jersey today. There you go.
Nice. Who are they playing, Mike?
Playing the Washington Nationals in the
Ooh.
nation's capital today, and it's a rubber match of our Padres Nationals 3-game series. About half of the Nationals team are former Padres that we traded to them to get Juan Soto a couple years ago.
So it'll be sort of a scrimmage, an old time scrimmage, huh?
They don't. Yeah, I think the
Yeah.
Nationals get up for the game more than we do.
We can continue this conversation maybe after we sign off.
Oh, shall we? Yes. I guess we're drifting. Okay, well, it's Prairie Pundits again. Today's May 31st, 2026. Thank you both, Brett and Mike, for joining, and thank you anyone who may have listened this long. I wish you all a fantastic rest of your beautiful Sunday, and we'll catch you in a week, huh? See how things go. I'm excited for it. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I'm signing off.